Welcome to Advocate Today. I'm Aaron Dean. On what would have been his 82nd birthday, the White House honoring Emmett Till and his mother with a new national monument. Emmett Till was lynched in Mississippi nearly 70 years ago after a white woman accused Till of whistling at her. Till's body was abducted from his bed, tortured, shot, and dumped in the Tallahatchie River at just 14 years old. His mother demanded an open casket at his funeral. The images of his mutilated body fueled the civil rights movement. Rosa Parks credited Till for the reason that she would not give up her seat on that bus in Montgomery, Alabama. The monument will cover locations in Illinois and Mississippi. Site 1 is where Till's body was discovered. Site 2 is the church in Chicago where Till's funeral was held. And Site 3 is at the courthouse where an all-white jury acquitted Till's killers. Till's cousin, Reverend Wheeler Parker, witnessed Till's abduction. He described it as a night of terror.
It has been quite a journey for me from the darkness to the light. When I sat with my family on the night of terror, when Emmett Till, our beloved Bobo, was taken from us, taken to be tortured, brutally murdered. Back then, when I was overwhelmed with terror and fear of certain death in the darkness of 1,000 midnights, in a pitch black house on what some have called Dark Fear Road. Back then in the darkness, I could never imagine a moment like this.
My fellow Americans, today we gather to remember our history. We gather to remember an act of astonishing violence and hate, and to honor the courage of those who called upon our nation to look with open eyes at that horror and to act. The story of Emmett Till and the incredible bravery of Mamie Till Mobley helped fuel the movement for civil rights in America.
We can't just choose to learn what we want to know. We have to learn what we should know. We should know about our country. We should know everything, the good, the bad, the truth of who we are as a nation. That's what great nations do, and we are a great nation. That's what they do. For only with truth comes healing, justice, repair, and another step forward toward forming a more perfect union.
Last year, Biden signed into law the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, making such a murder a federal hate crime. Illinois recently became the first state to end cash bail as a condition of pretrial release from jail. Supporters of the bill say the cash bail system only benefits the wealthy and those who can buy their way out of jail, while many are stuck behind bars, even if they didn't do the crime. Other states have made changes to cash bail, but Illinois is the first state to abolish it. It's being called a huge victory for prison reform by advocates, among them the Bail Project. I spoke with the Bail Project's National Director of Policy, Erin George, about the organization's mission to level the playing field. Tell us about the Bail Project and what it is that you all do.
I am the National Policy Director at the Bail Project. We're a nonprofit organization. We work nationally across the country, and we provide free bail assistance and pretrial support, return to court supports to low-income individuals across the country. In tandem, we also engage in policy advocacy to end money bail and advance pretrial justice through legislative change and policy practice. I think what's really unique about the Bail Project is that through our direct service work, we're evidencing what we know to be true, which is that money bail isn't necessary for people to return to court or for people to be safely released pre-trial. So we're taking that demonstrated work in the bail funds, and then we're translating that to policy change. And I think our statistics really speak for themselves. We, over the course of 5 years, have paid bail for nearly 40,000 people. We pay outright, they don't owe us any money, there's nothing on the line. And we have succeeded in supporting folks return to court over 90% of court dates. And again, with very limited supports, court notification, transportation. If they identify that there's a social service support that they need, we connect them with community-based organizations.
So for our viewers who are watching who may not know exactly, what is cash bail? Kind of lay down that foundation for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the original conception of cash bail was sort of like it's putting money on the line to return to court. So, someone is arrested, they're charged with something, and then a judge says, okay, if you pay this amount of money, you've sort of got collateral on the line and you'll return to court. But what we see in practice is that it really creates a two-tiered system of justice, right? There's the one system where someone who can afford to pay the money bail that's assigned gets released pre-trial. They get to go home to their families. They get to, stay in their jobs. They return to court. Their case resolves. And then there's the other system where people who are too poor to pay their bail, can't afford the bail that's assigned to them, are forced to remain in jail while they await trial. These are people who have been arrested but not convicted. They're legally innocent, and so what we've seen is really that cash bail has upended and turned the system and the presumption of innocence on its head by creating those two systems where someone with money can, is entitled to the due process that our Constitution lays out, and that someone without money is subject to criminalization and incarceration while they're still innocent.
Recently, there was a Illinois Supreme Court decision regarding cash bail. If you're familiar, can you kind of tell our viewers about that, and how does that decision impact that pretrial release process within the state?
Yeah, so we're really thrilled about the Supreme Court decision. It's a historic decision that upholds the constitutionality of the Pretrial Fairness Act, and it makes Illinois the first state to completely end money bail and end wealth-based jailing, and that'll go into effect on September 18th. And so, what the Pretrial Fairness Act does in practice is, by abolishing cash bail, makes sure that money's not a part of the equation. And then it also specifies procedures that judges need to follow in order to impose pretrial detention. So everybody is eligible for pretrial release under Illinois' new bail law. However, in some cases with serious, either serious charges or other, specifics about the case, becomes the government's burden to prove on the record that someone needs to be detained pretrial in order to protect public safety, or in order to ensure they return to court. Um, I think something that is little said is that by ending money bail, and by requiring that some people be released and not subject to pretrial incarceration, um, there are still a lot of options for judges. So even for an arrest, a low level arrest, that is no longer subject to money bail, no longer subject to detention, there's still a a broad range of pretrial decisions that a judge can make. They can release that person on recognizance, which again, the Bail Project's work shows that, uh, you know, the vast majority of people safely return to court for the vast majority of their court dates. But in other cases, they can, require check-ins. They can require that someone not contact an individual or avoid certain locations. They can require, mental health services and supports. But I think the key, and what is critical, is that for very many people, they will be able to return home, and it won't continue to exacerbate the problems with the problems of mental health, substance use, and poverty that actually drive the arrest in the first place.
When we look at this and we talk about marginalized communities, how did that system impact marginalized communities, and how will they be impacted moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, the criminal justice system overall disproportionately impacts people. There's nearly a quarter million people who are jailed pre-trial in Illinois each year, and the vast majority of people are there because they can't afford bail. So, the Pretrial Fairness Act is reducing this penalty for poverty, and then we know, because of broader systemic racism, systemic discrimination, that penalty for poverty is one that's historically paid mostly by Black and Brown people and other criminalized populations. The statistics are pretty profound. In Illinois in particular, Black people make up nearly 60% of the people who are incarcerated, but only 15% of the state population. And we also know that people of color face greater rates of poverty. So we know that money bail was driving incarceration. We also know from the data, which is very clear, that the LGBTQ community is overrepresented at every stage of the system. And so by ending this penalty, we're also going to be improving outcomes for other marginalized communities. I think a good example of, the hump to sort of get over is when we look at New York's bail law, which, has garnered a lot of press and media attention. And there's been a lot of fear mongering and sort of false rhetoric related to the impacts that law has had on public safety. But in just a few years since the law went into effect and passed, data and research are coming out that show that the law is actually improving public safety. It's reducing immigration, it's saving taxpayer dollars, and it's actually supporting the economy because people are home and working.
Thanks for watching Advocate Today. Download the app in the Apple or Google Play Store to stream us live, and you can even subscribe on our YouTube channel. For the Advocate channel, I'm Erin Dean, and this was Advocate Today.